Welcome to Radiant Realization with Navita. On this show, we dive into captivating conversations about life. I'm your host, Navita Shah, and I am excited to welcome Chirasree Bandyopadhyay on, on the show today. Chirasree, welcome.
Thank you. Uh, you're doing a wonderful job by
Thank
doing this show. So keep up the great work. It's so fascinating. Like I went through your channel and I was so amazed to see, like, you're connecting entrepreneurs together and bringing forward new ideas and thoughts. So marvelous job.
thank you so much. So, Chirasree is transmuting trauma into and making life miracle for all her clients. So, patients going to discuss with us what is trauma, how do we heal it, and how do we get into quantum jumping to make our lives beautiful and better. Seriously, I'm super excited to have this conversation with you. Before we go into all this, I would like to know from you about your journey and what got you started to pick up this as a coaching.
Mhm. So I am a trauma-informed therapist, a manifestation coach, and a healer. And I started my healing journey at a very young age because I grew up in a dysfunctional family with alcoholic, abusive father, extramarital affairs of my parents. So separation, divorce. And on the other side, I was getting bullied in school. So, with all of that going on in my life, I developed something called complex trauma or CPTSD over the course of time. It started with chronic trauma like flashbacks and triggers, and eventually it manifested as complex trauma. So I at a very young age, I kind of understood like there was something off in my body, there was something wrong with the experiences I was having because I was having heightened spiritual awareness and experiences, which was a manifestation of excess of trauma stored in my body. And that kind of awakened me to understand the healing journey and go within and really process my emotions on the inside. And that got me fascinated about psychology, and I wanted to study it furthermore. And then as I grew up, I continued to research more on that. And today I also have a career which is completely around that. And of course, with all of that kind of past, I relate the most to people who are coming from quite a lot of similar background. And that's what made me so interested to walk this path.
How do you define trauma?
So, trauma is a state of consciousness in your or a state in your body where aspects get stored. So, you can be triggered, fearful, or even numbed out and even frozen. So, trauma affects people in different ways. It's basically stored emotions manifesting in ways that are not helpful for us. But trauma can also show up as a person smoking too much. Trauma can show up as a person being completely frozen and being over outgoing. So it is not always like a person is fearful and triggered, but it can also manifest as serial dating in people. So it has so many repercussions and ways of manifestation. So a basic way of defining it would be a lot of repressed emotions causing behavioral dysfunction, functionality problem, and something that literally distorts your state of perception in life.
In your experience and healing the plan? What are the common ways that people are experiencing trauma?
So in India, one of the most common aspects I see is in-laws control, women having domestic violence, women going through horrible in-law situation. So that's one of the main wounds in India, I guess, domestic violence. But apart from that, of course, rape cases and molestations, bully wounds, seeing an experience that is horrific, workplace, politics, just, people gaslighting you and taunting you in your own family, or just somebody random on the street looking down upon you, body shaming, everything culminates down to manifesting as trauma for people.
And if we have to work on this, so what is the relationship between trauma and manifestation? I would say it would be an entire spectrum, right? Trauma on one hand and manifestation on other. How to bridge this relationship?
Manifestation means something is showing up, something is manifesting. So, to anything getting manifested is happening because there is something happening internally, and there are some additions and subtractions which is leading to that manifestation. So, trauma is a set of dysfunctional reactions and reciprocation from stored wounds. So that itself is a manifestation. So the wound and the experiences are the rewiring here. So a person is getting rewired and restructured, say by domestic violence, and it is getting manifested as excess of stress, loss of confidence, and losing a sense of self-esteem. And those are all manifestations of repressed wounds.
Trauma impact individuals' life.
So very differently, there are like basically three types of trauma. So acute trauma, which is like you see something horrific, maybe you've seen an accident or there was pandemic and people got really shocked and formed acute trauma. Then there is chronic trauma, which is like maybe someone has gone through dysfunctional family or domestic violence. That one incident it led to series of prolonged experience and exposure in that very setup, which led to chronic trauma. And complex trauma, as I was defining, which I went through, is series of events like maybe the person got bullied, maybe the person had dysfunctional wounds, there were triggers with the society, there were triggers how people set up their thought process, spiritual wounds, and all together culminates down to chronic trauma. So when a person is experiencing trauma, the person, many people don't even know they are going through trauma. Initially, it can show up as stress, it can show up as depression, it can show up as losing interest to live. Or on the other side of the spectrum, it can show up as the person is over outgoing, the person is being true codependent, or it's manifesting as serial dating pattern, or somebody is having wounds related to sexuality, like having sex with multiple partners. And all of them are actually manifestations of repressed wounds within. So it has different repercussions. It can go to the extent of people trying to commit suicide, and it just has extremely different impacts on people. And it can even lead to one of my clients, she literally picks up her skin. It can go to the extent of people literally scratching themselves and losing, just chopping off their hair, or just wanting to just do something different. And it can have like havoc impact on a person. It can also have a manifestation as overspending. So if a person is spending too much, is feeling like I need to spend all the money I have, that's trauma. If a person is literally feeling like I don't really own things and I should just give up everything and nothing belongs to me, that's society's revering of spiritual gaslighting, and that's trauma manifesting, because somewhere deep down the person is feeling like maybe at least through this I will satisfy God, and through that at least God will validate me. And that's that inner wound of going through repressed wounds again and again, and then seeking for that repercussion on the outside. So it manifests in millions of ways. Mhm.
What can people do to release this emotional wound so they can pass through this state of trauma?
Mhm. There are, of course, various methodologies and modalities which are for trauma healing now. But one of the modality that I have formulated is quantum integration therapy. And it has like basically 4 steps. And it's an easy way I have formulated. So this is one system. And on the other hand, I have another system which is called chronological remembrance. So I'll tell you about both of them. And they're super simple. Anyone can use it at home and come out of trauma. So first step is rant your heart out, purge your heart out, journal your heart out, like scribble, write, and just express whatever is inside. Like, please don't hold back anything in your heart. Don't let any emotion, any memory settle inside your body, because those are the things that manifest. So, more you release your heart out, rant your heart out, it will help you to release what's stored. That's why talk therapy has been prevalent for years and it has worked for people. But just talk therapy is not that functional. So, that's why the 3 more steps are there. So, the second step is you become aware of the emotions. So first you rant, then you rant about the emotions. Like you've just shared the story. So I feel terrible. I feel ashamed. I feel triggered. I feel wound stored here. I feel angry. So whatever the emotions are, step 2 is rant the emotional part. Step 3 is process the sensation. So where are you feeling it in your body? Is it showing up as headache? Is it showing up as numbness? Is it showing up as a state where you feel frozen? Check in what is happening inside your body. Observe the sensation. Understand the structure of the emotion. And once you start to understand the structure, you actually start to realize how it's moving in your body. And then understand that those structures are energy. So literally remold the structure, which is step 4, to manifest what you desire. So you transmute into more money, transmute it into more miracles, transmute it into intimate, deep, meaningful relationships. So you can just transmute that energy, like literally you can sense the structure. So literally that's energy. People think that this is stuck feeling and it will not go, but that's excess of cortisol. So as you love it and as you nurture those sensations, they will transmute into more oxytocin and serotonin. And first, the transmutation has to happen, which is the body has to produce endorphins and it has to move from pain to pleasure. So that switch from pain to pleasure is the transmutation process. So you set the intention that I transmuted to miracles. I claim this is getting me justice. And with a person who's having trauma and wounds, they have a lot of vigor and strength because they've been through a lot. So they manifest the best. So choose that I transmute it into more possibilities. I transmute it into miracles. And it will manifest and also release that stored aspect from your body. And this is one of the system. The other system is chronological remembrance. And for that, as the name suggests, chronologically remember what you can remember. So go to each year of your life, month wise, sit down and be like, okay, what happened in this month? What was the emotions? What was the sensation? And what do I want to transmute it into? So when we are transmuting, we are basically giving our body what it needs. So it might need love. It might just need to rant. It might just need to feel like I want to break something. So allow your body to do whatever you want to do, and don't judge yourself, because if a person is going through trauma, they're also judging themselves a lot, self-trash talking, like, oh my God, you dwell in this emotion so much and all of that. Don't do all of that. Be very compassionate with yourself, because it's like havoc wound. If it was visible and compared to a literal bruise, then it's like literally taking a knife and cutting a portion and chucking and hurting a person. It's that kind of wound a person is storing inside their body. So be as compassionate that you would be with a person who's physically bruised.
So you gave two insights, like one is the quantum and second is chronological remembrance. I really feel that you've designed like a beautiful method to work around this. So Risha, taking this forward, if you can give me some context about what is the connection between mind and body? The two exercises that you gave, it's more about writing down your thoughts. But the pain is there in the body. So how does this work?
Mhm. So there is something called amygdala in our brain, which is the threat center. So whenever our body goes through a state of trauma, our sympathetic nervous systems get activated. Our amygdala becomes highly sensitive. So even if there is not literally a triggering incident happening, even the thought of it, the awareness of it will start to shake the amygdala. So as the amygdala starts shaking in your body and your body gets into that state of like, I'm frozen, or fight and flight gets activated, there's excess of cortisol, which is stress hormone growing in our body. So the stress hormone starts to get spread around your body. So your amygdala in your mind is threatened, and there's excess of cortisol being produced in the body. Sooner or later, there's a stuck like feeling in the body, which is excess of cortisol, which is literally stuck. And the body is always trying to come out from pain and is trying to move to pleasure. Our mind is designed that way. So our mind is naturally finding ways to reactivate the parasympathetic. So there's endorphins being produced, there's the transmutation process happening. Our insula, which is the part which integrates in our brain, that gets activated, and there's constant transmutation happening, and our body is trying to activate more positive hormones, but that doesn't work because our body is literally giving up. There's fear and triggers coming up. And that's when there's something called ACC, anterior cingulate cortex, in our brain that literally functions as that, it gets rewired with our amygdala. So our amygdala is like, there's something threatening. So ACC is like, all right, I get it. So it sends PFC, our executive brain, the signal that, all right, there is threat, and execute and manifest that there is an issue. So PFC is like, all right, there is an issue. And the entire body goes through a shutdown, and there's excess of cortisol growing over the body, and people feel like they're lost, they're stuck, but that's excess of cortisol. And knowing this and becoming aware of it can help them naturally to realize that, okay, there's nothing wrong with me, there's excess of cortisol, I can go for hormonal balancing, I can take medication for healing trauma, or I can take therapy to reduce the cortisol level and switch to activating more endorphins, so that that adrenal rush, or that excess of dopamine rush does not happen. but the body rather starts producing more oxytocin and serotonin because our body kind of, is looking for that dopamine rush at that time. So, as I said, people overspend, people eat a lot, people try to cut their hand because they're just trying to come out of that and activate that dopamine rush for a moment. And that also causes a lot of adrenaline fatigue and affects our kidneys. So, like trauma can affect our body parts because once your cortisol is imbalanced, you have excess of stress, it's the seat of all diseases. It manifests as headache, there is digestive issues, there is like people who want to get up, people are or they're sleeping too much, they cannot like literally function, and most people feel stuck sensation, and that's excess of cortisol getting stored in the body.
There is a lot of things happening in the body inside. So when people who's gone through all this, they decide, okay, let me step onto healing journey. So what are the initial challenges that they would face? Because the body is in different zone with all trauma stored inside. And now they are saying, okay, I want to heal.
If a person consciously wants to change and is aware they are going through trauma and they need healing, they have a different set of mindset because they are more or less aware there's something wrong with me, and they do not hold much of taboo about mental health healing or reaching out to a therapist. A person who's already aware. But unfortunately, most people are not already aware, and people have a lot of taboo about going to a therapist or showing up for their trauma healing. So they'll be like, oh my God, what's happening with me? First response is like, I'm going to hide this. I'm not going to talk about this. So, first thing people do is they hide. So they stay there, they hide it, they show up in their daily life, and they like, they act like, oh, nothing is wrong with me. They have that pretty smiling face, but inside they're like crushing. And a time comes, they can't take it anymore. Maybe they have a breakdown, or maybe they had a fight with the spouse, or there's some triggering fight happening in their personal life, there's a wounding. Mhm. A lot of people who walk in the journey of having trauma, most people who are aware that there's a mental health issue going on with them, and this is trauma, and this is coming from my childhood or dysfunctional family wounds, they'll just walk into a therapist and take healing. I come from that spectrum of people because I had realized at a very young age, and my friends also I grew up with, a lot of them I have seen have, who also come from this functional family, they naturally walked into a therapist's office very easily because we were having that programming already about mental health awareness. And this is why mental health awareness is so necessary. But in my profession, what I have noticed while talking about trauma or while conveying the message to clients, I have actually noticed that people tend to, avoid the fact of mental health wounding and triggers a lot. And they have a lot of taboo about it. So they usually don't want to show up for a therapist, but they'll rather show up for their relationship healing. They'll rather show up for their money problems. They'll rather show up for their wounds, blocks, black magic triggers, or spiritual awareness. And eventually, a lot of people who are going through their emotional healing or their spiritual healing or clearing for their twin flames journey, clearing for their spiritual ascension journey, are actually having wounds and triggers, and they're starting to walk the path of healing journey, but they kind of don't prefer traditional therapy initially because they're like, oh my God, there's something wrong with me. I'm traumatized. I'm crazy. I don't want to go to a therapist. I don't want to go for mental health healing. That's initially the reaction of a lot of people. And as people become more aware of what's happening with them, and the scientific awareness comes in about what's actually happening and why it's so normal to walk into a therapist's office and start healing, and it's just like having fever or having cough and cold, they start to get normalized about it and walk in for therapy sessions. So, in my own career journey, I've experienced that, clients who came to me for relationship healing, and they had wounds and stress and triggers and anxiety and fears and insecurities coming up, but they were not ready to really work on those aspects. And initially, as I kept on clearing and working with them, a lot of them have admitted that eventually they could realize that there was stuff going on inside them. It was anxiety and triggers. And then they were pushed towards focusing more on their self love, more on their inner healing, and working on other aspects and emotions. And then kind of correlating to, all right, this is because there was something that happened in childhood, or this was because there was something society programmed me with, and that's where I have formulated this pattern. And that's where that aspect of clearing comes in. But more, I believe there is awareness now. So there will be more awareness in the eventual years. So more people are aware, it'll be just like that. Oh, right, it's just like a headache or a cough and cold. Same thing is like depression and anxiety. So, like, if you have it, let's go and get it treated. It's a part and parcel of life. Like, people can get a fever, they can get stressed. There's nothing like, we don't really feel like, oh, how can I have fever? Like, such a shame I have fever. So it's like, that's the same thing with anxiety. So there's no shame about anxiety. You have anxiety, like you have fever. Staying in a world which is fast paced and there's so much to worry about adulting, pressure gets created in our body, and that leads to anxiety, stress, and emotional dysfunction. And there is nothing wrong with it. It's like fever, it's like headache.
So, what are some coping strategies that you give to your client while they are on their healing journey?
When I'm working with my clients, it's usually a 30 days process minimum when they are coming from deep-rooted wounding or emotional healing or relationship healing. So I'm going to give them these 4 steps. So whoever comes, I first ask them, please rant. For the past 7 years, I've been doing this, and my clients are by now pro at purging. So my clients literally just know that whenever there's something wrong, we need to purge. So first step, I tell them purge. And then I ask them, what are the emotions coming in? What do you feel as a sensation? And I usually have pre-made videos and tools which I give them. So it's based on the situation they are in. So the tools are created in a way that is talking to their emotional aspect, energetic aspects, and clearing their inner aspects and shifting them to the consciousness of their desire. So it's purging and clearing stuff coming up in them. And I also inform them about different emotional aspects, the different ways trauma impacts a person. So by the time my client goes back, they go back all aware, all informed about what's going on, and they become pro at purging. So whenever something happens after the session, they know that I need to just purge and let my heart out. So journaling and ranting, and it's very unique person to person because not everybody had the same issue. So that's why I keep them in at least a 30 days period around me. So I have a usually 30 days WhatsApp chat based program. So where they are like sending me random voice notes. I have like, there are days I wake up with like abundance of voice notes from my clients because they're just simply purging. And so I just usually will type them the question or send them the question based on the emotions coming up, or say something that is intuitively coming to me, and more they share those aspects, more and more layers coming up. So more they process and share that, they feel that release. I'm not a very big fan of coping techniques. So I don't just tell them that just ignore it, because it's the root that has to be cleared. You can't just put a band-aid and walk around, because if a person is anxious, they just can't stop being anxious unless we go to the root of it. So I usually will go to the root of it, ask them to purge. Like for today, for example, one of my clients, she was having issues with procrastination and showing up for her business. So her my schedule is booked, so I can only take session again on, I think, Wednesday. So she could not book her session. So she can only book her session on Wednesday. So I was like, all right, I would not obviously wait for Wednesday for her to clear. So I started asking her, like, what is it that is triggering you? What is the wound? And then as she was sharing the layers and aspects of what is stopping her to show up for her business and start, as she started processing, already on chat, a point came when she reached the conclusion, like, all right, I'm going to start going live on Facebook. I'm going to do all of these things. It switched to a state of planning from a state of procrastination just by sharing what's going on. So, asking people the right questions and allowing them to share their heart out, and then, of course, knowing their emotional sensations and switching it and shifting it, which I help with the tools, are the ways I help them to come out of it.
And have you noticed any post-traumatic stress disorder in your clients?
Mhm. So I do have a lot of clients who are coming from PTSD and CPTSD, and I am working with a client for the past 2.5 years, and she's been through a lot of abuse since childhood, and she lost her father at a young age. So life has not been easy for her. So literally, she stays in panic all the time. It's so difficult for her to trust and show up in daily life. And, it's very easily she gets stressed and wounded. So I've seen a lot of those aspects in her and other clients as well. And it's literally like a state where people constantly doubt themselves. They're already in a state of fear. They're always feeling like there's someone out there to get me. People don't have the best interest. I should be isolated. These are the kind of thoughts that usually come in. But once a person has become my client, they just know that, all right, these are limiting beliefs. These are triggers you get. So now she also is pro at realizing and shifting her states of consciousness very fast through the 4-step process I told you.
Chirasree, another interesting point that I would like to know from you is about quantum jumping. So from trauma, we've come to a healing stage, but now a brighter future and now quantum jumping. Your thoughts?
So quantum jumping is one of the easiest way to manifest, because if you just wait for a manifestation to show up and things to change organically, it's a little slower process. Quantum jumping is very fast. There are various techniques of quantum jumping, but one of my favorite techniques is what I'm about to share with you. So it's literally a step with emotions. And people who are my clients usually, as I said, have a lot of wounds and triggers and trauma. So they're more heart centered, or they're just numbed out and they can't understand what's going on. So these techniques actually help them to switch faster. So say you want to get into a state of consciousness where the abuse did not happen, you did not go through a difficult past, life was wonderful. So you need to get into that state of consciousness of you have got the justice, right? So you have received that miracle. So quantum jumping can actually help people switch that, because it's a lot like the manifestation revision technique also. which is like revising a reality like it did not happen. But quantum jumping is more like manifestation itself is more like being in that state of it has already happened. So, say a person is angry, for example, because a person who's traumatized is going to have a lot of anger. So, say the person is angry and wrathful of what the experiences were. So, the person wants to get into a state of justice. So, they just work on that emotion of, I have received that justice. I have received that justice. I have received that justice. And more they do it, they feel that conviction also. Like the anger is coming out, aggression is coming out. What has happened is that as the energy is flickering out, like I have received justice, a little bit of energy flickered out, they shifted to that dimension, their frequency changed. So they are again like, I have received that justice, more momentum is in my body, so there's more pressure building up, so their frequency is furthermore switching, so the resonance is no longer the same. So that mundane energy of I am angry, I am feeling bitter is starting to crack. That structure energetically is starting to break. So more they are in that zone of I have received that justice and start embodying it, eventually the wounds that are there just get flickered out and they will get into the state of, oh, I have received that justice. That thing did not happen. I received justice in that experience. So, more that person stays there, those energies, which are not visible, of course, start to get flickered, but the person can understand sensationally. So, instantly they will switch to a state of resonating to the state of, like, I received justice. With this, they can do it with, like, I have received more money. I am now abundant. I'm now rich. I have that relationship. So more that person vibes there, aspects start to burst out and resonate to the frequency of that they desire, and they've teleported and quantum jump to the dimension where it has already happened, and it gets pushed out in no time because it's instant, because you've already switched to that state. And with that kind of conviction, things really switch faster.
For any individual to address their emotional and psychological issues? How can they go through this quantum jumping exercise?
So, for example, someone is going through workplace trauma. Say they're going through workplace politics. This question came to me in the morning, in fact. So I shared this video with that person as well. So if they say going through workplace trauma, they're experiencing people that are difficult. They are gaslighting you, and you have to put up with people that are difficult and they trigger you. So every time that person comes in contact with that person, the person is getting scared, intimidated, triggered, or angry, right? So whenever the person is going through all of those emotions, the person going through it needs to realize is that manifestation is actually a journey of, you have to first be that to receive that. So if you want money, you have to be like, I am rich consciousness. If you want married, you have to be, I am married. So likewise, if you want to switch to a state of, this so and so person is not triggering me, I am not intimidated by that person, I am not intimidated by that person, is a state of consciousness, is a feeling. Like if you are like, I'm intimidated and triggered by this person, there's a different feeling, there's a different body language. I'm like, I'm not triggered and intimidated by this person. It's a different sort of feeling. So they will like switch to that state on the inside and be like, all right, the anger, the emotion that are coming up, I am switching it, and I'm believing that I have received that justice. I'm believing that I am receiving that justice. I'm believing that I am having that courage and conviction and transformation of miracle happening in my favor. I am the one for whom changes are happening. I am the one who's being respected. And they continue to work on it. And if you are finding it difficult to actually do it, and say the person is having triggers or anger. I cannot think this is happening because this person is so mean to me every day at work. How can I think that this person has changed and is being punished? So you literally, again, need to reware yourself and understand that law of attraction to work for you. You have to be that. So you get into the state of, I have received that justice. I am in that state of conviction where justice is served. This person is being punished. The truth is coming out. I am no longer intimidated. The more the person gets into that state, the person will come in contact with the person can no longer, you know, affect that button inside them. They cannot get triggered anymore. So it doesn't matter anymore then, because whoever triggers, whatever happens on the inside, the person is not going to get affected because they have switched to another dimension where they have worked through it and without bypassing their emotions, because they've literally remolded and shifted their emotions very literally through this method and gotten in there through that state in their body. So that switch is eternal and life changing.
But Chirasree, you did brought this idea about another dimension. I would like to know what are your ideas on parallel universe and how quantum jumping helps individual in transporting themselves to a parallel universe.
So I just love this topic. You are a parallel reality. I am a parallel version of you. We're all parallel realities of each other. We are all connected. The entire human consciousness is like a networking system. So if we consider the entire human consciousness like God is the brain and it's connected to the entire human being. So all the neurotransmitters and nerve fibers are actually in the structure of the networking system. Also, if you look at the structure, even the galaxies are of the same structure, like there's nebula in between and there's literally everything coming out from every corner. So literally there's God photon and there's all of us connected and entangled together. So we are all an entire soul family, the earth. We are each other's family members. We are parallel realities. And literally, we are all connected. So, literally, each emotion and sensation is a parallel reality. So, a group of people who are experiencing sorrow are having the same set of thoughts and set of feelings and set of emotions. And a person who's experiencing sorrow is naturally in that frequency and is connecting to a lot of people. And that's also affecting your algorithm and AI, because if you're vibing in pain and your frequency is there, that way Instagram algorithm will give you more of those kind of posts. YouTube is going to give you more of those posts, maybe because you search that a lot. Similarly, the universe has algorithm. So if you are vibrating in that pain frequency, you're going to see more of that. So likewise, as you shift your frequency and get into happiness and joy and ecstasy, you are going to be connecting to people who are vibing in that consciousness, have happier thoughts and vibe in that coherence. So you're going to be experiencing another parallel dimension and resonating factor with those sort of people. So here you're jumping to another dimension in seconds by changing the channel of your emotions and connecting to another group and vibing with another group. And each of the groups are connected, like happiness is connected to sorrow, sorrow is connected to happiness. Both are connecting and coming in contact with each other. So a parallel dimension is connecting to each other. And as the sensational shift is happening, say someone is moving from sorrow to joy, in between maybe there's confusion, so there is another, a bridge opening, another portal opening, which is more of a halfway through between, and there are different junctions. So as you have different emotions, So you're moving different parallel realities to realities, having different emotions and experiences. So as the emotional shifts happen, social media is the best way to experience it. So I do this game a lot. So at night when I am like, checking my phone, and I actually do this experiment a lot, and it's so much fun. You can try it tonight. So all the emotions you're having, you're going to that different dimension. Like you're feeling something, the social media algorithm is syncing with it. That's actually manifestation and social media algorithm coming together and vibing and giving you a unmatched experience where you're like radiating in that kind of bliss to experience that. So each emotion is a frequency and lands up to a state. And with that, we're connecting to a parallel dimension. And that is literally a magical world we live in.
Yes, I agree. We live in a magical world. Everything is connected. I would like to have your final thoughts on basically any individual who is conscious about his or her trauma or unconscious about his or her trauma, facing a different challenges in their life. What would be your advice to those people?
Treat trauma like headache, like whenever we have gray hair, we will immediately rush to the salon to hide it. So whenever your heart is trembling and you're stressed, do not be like, oh, this is just stress, this is just depression. It's not just stress. Stress is the root core cause of all problems. Like if you are one of my clients manifested tuberculosis from trauma. So I have seen people manifesting gastric diseases from trauma. Trauma is the root core cause of headaches. Beneath cancer and any kind of disease is excess of stress. So whether you have PCOD or any kind of thing going on, beneath that is unprocessed emotion. Just affirming and manifesting and being positive will not help, because if a person is trying to put band-aid on those wounds, they are just, it's like, you have a cut, and without really treating it, you just take a white color band-aid and just hide it. Not even the band-aid that comes with adhesive, but you just, why just put a white cloth on it, because nobody can see it. It's like that. So please get yourself treated and allow yourself to realize that your emotional realm is real. And behind all manifestation, I have 6300 plus success stories with manifestation, and I've helped abundance of people get their eggs back, manifest their relationship, get more money, improve their health. But beneath everything was emotional processing. Not even one client of mine has gone through a different technique other than emotional processing, because if you are emotionally bypassing yourself, you're not even connected to yourself, because human beings are emotional beings. So more we are connected to our emotions and compassions, we are enjoying life, because to enjoy energy and just switch to different state of meditation and avoid our emotions will not help, because when we are connected to our emotions, we are connected to our body. So the bridge between the spirit world and human world are our emotions. So to actually even experience most exuberant magical experiences, you need to connect to your emotions. So if you don't want to get your trauma treated, get it treated to improve your manifestations. So if you want to 10x your manifestation, work on your emotional woundings. And it's not just because you might not be from a dysfunctional family, and you might have been just traumatized by society, even serials and programming. Everything counts. So if anything is affecting you, if anything feels like has power over you, if you feel like that something out there is scaring you and making you feel like it has more control over you, that matrix is controlling you. That matrix has power over you. So free yourself from those agent myths. And the way to get those agent myths out of your matrix and become your new and Trinity version with all the power and vigor, that energetic magnificence also comes from your emotional empowerment. So the secret, which really helped yogis also do telekinesis and go to different levels for states where they worked on their fear. Everybody will talk about fearlessness. So, how do you get into fearlessness without working on your trauma? You're triggered here, you're traumatizing, your heart is trembling. Obviously, you have to soothe it down, calm it down, work in those aspects, and nurture those aspects and release it. So release aspects that are stored in you and let your heart out and release stuck energy. And you will naturally land up in vortexes of miracles and experience magical possibilities. So do not just purge your heart out, but also know the emotions and sensations, and then transmute that structure and remold it in the shape you want, because those are stuck energy, or hormone is also energy. So restructure the cortisol energy instead of getting scared of it. Know that that's cortisol and change its structure and make it the shape you prefer.
Heart shape. So nice of you, Chirasree, to share entire process and how it helps. I wish you get more success stories from your client because you're doing an amazing job. I really love the technique and strategies and the definitions and the science behind all that we go through that you shared. Thank you for all your sharing wisdom and insight. Thank you for
Thank
coming.
you for having me in your show. It's been so lovely to talk to you about this. This is something I'm so fascinated to talk about. So I just loved this interaction between us. Thank you.